Good morning, everyone. Everyone well? Excellent. I hope we look forward for a great day here. Before I kick it off, I was here last year giving a similar talk about the challenges of the energy transition and how that really boils down to two things, borders and barriers, and how a successful energy transition depends upon a borderless grid, where both the supply chain side and the demand side meet and merge together. I think the good news is we start to see this happening now, but it resembles something of a marathon. And we need to change that to a more of a mindset of a series of sprints and a mindset of pioneering. Oh, it's working? Okay, good. Emissions are the mission. Again, I say missions are the mission. I like the sound of that. Are we succeeding in our mission? Are we winning the fight against climate change? If you look at the right-hand side of the graph, it could go either way, right? But in reality, we're not. We see what happened in 2023 when the world's demand for electricity grew by 2.2%. We're still not meeting those emission targets today. And it's expected in the near term, when I'm saying the near term, I'm saying 2026, that the average energy consumption will grow by 3.4%. So if we can't meet our CO2 global annual emissions now, how are we going to do that in the very near future? Energy efficiency development is fundamental, and the future is not about using less. It's about a smarter use of energy and leveraging the technologies that we really have today. Acceleration in the transition towards these new technologies is key, and real leaders should be pioneers in adapting these new technologies for electrification of processes, flexibility of services, and of course, renewable energies. I want to give you an interesting data point that I read a couple of days ago on EVs. In 2023, there were 3.5 million, more EVs than 2022. That's a 35% year-on-year increase. In 2023, just under 60% of new electric car registrations were in the People's Republic of China. Now, if you think about renewable generation also, and we're having about a 20+% year-on-year increase in renewable generation, which is good. But in 2023, 70% of the power generation mix in China was thermal power generation. The EV evolution is good, 2022 versus 2023, but it's mainly happening in China. And it's mainly happening with coal-fired power generation in the mix. My challenge to myself and to all of us in the room here, that we really need to be bolder in these new technologies we have today. And I want to talk about renewables. Global annual renewable capacity increased by almost 50% to nearly 510 gigawatts in 2023. That's the fastest growth in the past 2 decades. And if we consider the net zero scenario of 2030, 40% of energy should come from renewables, and 60% by 2050. And in fact, there's also some changes in non-renewable electricity generation also, which declined by 3% in 2020, but then again increased in 2021 by 5%, and it's still on that upward trend. This is where grids must play a bigger and much larger role here in the transition. As I stated prior, renewables increased by 50% in 2023, and the investment in renewables has doubled. I say again, the investment in renewables has doubled since 2010. That's a great job. Bravo to everyone. But the reality is, it's not so just efficient to invest in renewables. if projects are really stuck waiting for grid connections. So modernisation investments should be aligned with renewable investments. And of course, digitisation to really untap the existing potential we have within both distribution and transmission networks. There are some 3,000 gigawatts, I say again, 3,000 gigawatts of green electrons right now, today, waiting to play their role in the energy transition and to fight against climate change. To put that in perspective, that's about equivalent to 5 times the amount of solar and PV that happened in 2022. 5 times the amount. So really, grids are becoming the weak link of the clean energy transition. When we think about it, I want to talk about 3 ways how we can improve. Grid modernisation, as I said, is a priority and should be planned wisely. There's a great report published by the IEA recently that talks about electricity grids and secure energy transition. And they say that to reach the net zero scenario goal means by adding or refurbishing some 80,000 kilometres. I'll say again, 80 million kilometres, my fault. 80 million kilometres of grids by 2040. That's 80 million kilometres of grids by 2040. But we all know that new grid infrastructure takes 5 to 15 years to plan, to permit, to complete, compared with renewables, which take anywhere between 1 to 5 years. And then if you want to talk about EV charging infrastructure, probably less than 2 years. So all the investment in hardware is needed, but all the investment in hardware should be really linked to a clear digitisation roadmap to gain efficiencies, and of course speed. And speed is really the key. Speed is really what we want here. So when we think about all the grids of the future, and we think about driven by data, and we look at these 3 axes here, increased network output to allow electrification. Mind you, we're going to have 2 times more electricity over the next 10 years, and we need much more efficiency and working on loss reduction and network automation over that period there. More connection of renewables, as I said, renewables, distributed energy resources, renewables, wind, solar, others, and much more decentralized generation. And of course, lastly but not least, and I think it's everyone's responsibility here in the room, mine included, is sustainability. I think we all need to be role models here when it comes to sustainability and reducing the environmental impact. I want to give you a few examples of we at Schneider Electric with our partners and our customers are addressing these challenges and opportunities head on. You know, digitising solutions that enable improvement in operational efficiency, from power restoration to virtual substations to SADI reduction. A few great examples here on the screen there with Schneider Electric ADMS, with SAPN networks, restoring power to the majority of customers in under 1 minute and avoiding penalties of up to 2 million per year. With Enel, managing over 1,200 power generation assets, performance optimised, and identifying over 200 events for early failures. And of course, DET is another great example. 500,000 minutes of outage saved and a reduction of SADI by 2%. When we come to renewables and distributed energy resources here, some great example on DERMS with PG&E, orchestrating over 700,000 points in the network capacity increase of some 6.5 megawatt to over 1,200 megawatt. Or with this SAPN again, in addition to the huge PV solar that they have in their network, and over 30% of customers leveraging microgrids, SAPN chose to deploy DERM solution, and DERM solution gave them a day-ahead forecasting and provided a dynamic operating envelope to each PV inverter to prevent grid violations. And of course, sustainability, as I said, it's everyone's role to be a role model in sustainability and changing existing devices in the grid with SF6-free technologies to avoid GHG emissions in the atmosphere is really a great example here. Or using condition-based maintenance programs, reducing planned or interval-based maintenance to gain efficiencies, to direct the teams on the field where they need to go, or better scheduling of maintenance. I want to give you another interesting data point here on SF6. 196 megaton. I say again, 196 megaton is the equivalent of 8,600 tons of SF6. Particularly installed, there are over 10 million switchgear units in Europe. So just imagine the what we need to do there when it comes to that. I guess, at Schneider, we have a holistic view here, really an end-to-end interconnected solution covering the full value chain and providing, I guess we look at 4 pillars here, providing 4 pillars of grids of the future or any smart grid for that matter. 1, a scalable data infrastructure. 2, software applications for better asset management. 3, automation solutions to transmit commands to the grid. And 4, lastly but not least, better hardware to withstand the constraints of the grid and a more flexible grid that we need for today and the future. All these are noticeable in some of the success stories I just shared in the previous slides, and all represent the benefits of a highly connected system of systems. This open and connected product ecosystem that connects software with hardware, designers to field crews, is critical to building faster. And I said speed is the key, what we need here. And managing a more overloaded and building really customers, and I say customers, when we talk about this bidirectional grid, when we talk about an open grid, building customers into the energy equation is paramount. And we can do it. We have the technology available today, and all of us in the room can do it, and all of us out there can do it. At Schneider, we're lucky to work with about 50% of Fortune 500 companies, and we see a common theme across all of these companies. I think leaders in sustainability are adapting an integrated approach. They strategize, they digitize, and they decarbonize. From target setting to execution, to be able to deliver results in line with their climate ambitions. And we have all the tools needed, as I said, and the moment is now for us to act. And this convergence of digital and electric is what we call Electricity 4.0. And with Electricity 4.0, we not only define all sectors and all end markets, the initiatives that could activate to efficiently decarbonise. But if I go back to some of my opening comment there about relating to the energy transition of somewhat of a marathon here, we need to move that mindset, as I said, a mindset to sprints or a series of sprints if we're really to gain the overall objectives that we want to do. So I ask probably everyone who's with me on this. Few hands? All right, there's a few hands. Great. All right. I'm lucky I'm not alone. That's my speech. Happy to take some questions in the room if you have any. Look forward to engaging during the day. If you want to learn more about grids of the future, please look out for the Schneider Electric website or our social media pages. Remember, we need to take this series of sprints. Emissions are the mission, and we need to decarbonise and to leverage the speed and the grids, unblocking those barriers, I said, or removing those barriers, merging both the supply side and the demand side together in this bidirectional grid is really key in us succeeding in our climate change targets and ambitions. So thank you.